There we were in the mean mad ocean on November 6th, 2021 in Ironman, Florida, trying to get through a swim that was kind of a surprise to everybody as you're going to shore. It wasn't quite what we were expecting on the back end. So, I'm Ryan, SethBaseTriathlon.com, and I'm going to do a little rendition of what my swim was like compared to other swims. This is my ninth Ironman finish. So compared to other events, I've done Ironman Florida in 2017 when the ocean swim. Did in 2018 was in Haines City and it was at a pond, so it was a little bit different there too. But I just want to kind of go over. I've seen posts all over. And I guess the rumor was 400 to 500 people DNF on the swim. I had an athlete that unfortunately didn't make it past the first loop. They took him out because he didn't meet the time cutoffs for the first loop. So I just want to kind of go over my experience and give you a little bit of background, and we'll dive right into it. So as you can see in the background, there's the Ironman Florida swim course. It looks pretty straightforward. You kind of swim around the pier and you do 2 laps. So I'm out in the ocean, swim back, and you're out on the bike course and you're doing the bike. Unfortunately, the wind had a little bit different thing to say about it. And a little bit of background about my swimming. I've been doing triathlon since about 2001, and that's really when I started figuring out how to swim. I was really horrible at the start, and now I'm mediocre. By no means am I a winning range group. I'm probably like the top third in swimming, so the very bottom of the top third. So I'm proficient enough and efficient so I can get through the swim, especially Ironman distance, and I'm not totally drained, not totally wiped out, and I'm somewhat, I guess, competitive if you want to call it that. So typically in 2017, I did this race. It was down shore a little bit in a different location, but I mean, still in the Gulf. It's like less than 2 or 3 miles away. It was in the ocean. It was calm winds, calm waters. Did it in about an hour and 10 was wetsuit legal. So 2017 and 2021 wetsuit legal. I think the temperature in 17 was like, I don't know, in the 70s or something like that. So race day in 2021, I think water temperature was 67 degrees. And I'll say I agree with that right towards the shore. Once you got out, the water got actually kind of warmer, but it kind of sucked when you're swimming back in. And you get cold again, and you hop out, and the air temperature was, I think, in the high 40s by the time you got done with the swim. But race morning, the wind was blowing pretty good, probably 10, 12 miles per hour. A little breeze going on. It was cold. So we're all sitting there shivering in our wetsuits trying to get ready to start the swim. Um, it was interesting when you jumped out there. It reminded me of 2017. There were some little waves, nothing crazy. You didn't really have to fight to get out there. So in that first loop, coming out to that first turn buoy, it really, I thought it was going to be a great swim. I made that, and it seemed like the buoys were just coming faster and faster than normal. I'm like, hey, this is great. This is looking good. I'm feeling, this is a lot less effort than most of my swims. But little did I know, at loop one, or turn one, we'll be facing this. So it wasn't that quite epic, but the wind suddenly, when you turned, I believe that is west, the wind was like kind of right in your face. There was chop. It was crazy. It was a completely different swim once you hit that first turn buoy. So you hit that first turn buoy in this back swim. There's chops. There's waves. If you breathe to your right, that water is just coming in your face, and you're just taking it, just drinking water. And so I had to turn to the left, and I'll go over kind of the tips that I did of all my training and what I tell my athletes and everything of how to get through a swim, especially I did a video about swimming in choppy water, so hopefully you watched it and helped you out. But I mean, this back course was wow. That out of my 9 Ironman races and pretty much my 15 half Ironman races, this is probably the most difficult swim as far as the current, as far as the chop, the wind. It was intense. People were not making very good progress. People were swimming all over the place. People were hanging on to buoys. People were hanging on to kayaks. I'm not sure. I didn't really see swimming wise. I didn't see people, kayaks or jet skis or boats racing around and plucking people out. I think a lot of people got caught on the first loop. They hit the time limit, and then they didn't let them finish the second loop. Didn't let them go back in. Some people finished the second loop and they didn't meet the time cutoff. They went ahead and did the rest of the race, but they just don't get results. so they got a DNF technically. But I mean, you hit that first turn, it was crazy. There was, like I said, it was just you look up and there's just waves in your face. There's water everywhere. You get mouthfuls of salt water. People are swimming everywhere. The sighting was extremely difficult to look up for a second to be able to find the buoy without getting water in your face and being thrown off course and somebody swimming into you. You're being pushed into somebody. It was a washing machine. Best way to describe it. And then when you hit the second turn, it got a little bit better because the wind is coming into your face, so you could breathe on both sides. And it wasn't much of a difficult situation, but that current was so strong. It was just pushing you east, and it was just super difficult to keep track of where the buoys were at, stay on course, and it was swimming back was a little tough. The back portion, swimming west through the water, that was insane. It was like three different bodies of water. You swam out in a pretty mild, smooth, the wind at your back, I guess, and you got out to that first turn buoy, and then you turned, and you knew something was wrong when you saw that first turn buoy. It was basically on the side. The point was pointing that way, so it was difficult to see the turn buoy when you got there because the wind was just pushing it over. So once we got out past the pier, it must have really picked up. I don't know if that pier. I mean, the pier, it's got the legs, but it's not really. I wouldn't say it's blocking wind, so I'm not sure what exactly was going on with the wind, the currents, all that kind of fun stuff. But getting out the first turn buoy was a piece of cake compared to the back swim and then turning in and then heading in. So as you can see, it's a nice crisp straight line here in their little map here. And I will pull up my Garmin, which I've gotten extremely the last 2 years. I've really focused on the sighting and just making sure I keep in straight lines so I'm not over swimming my distances, because that's going to be a key, especially to do the longer distances. If you're not sighting often enough, you're getting off course all the time, and you're having to make corrections, you're going to get kind of a strange looking course. But as you can see, swimming out, you kind of got pushed out to the west as you're swimming, or out to the east as you're swimming along. And then this first turn buoy. So the first time, I cut it pretty close. I was like right there in the turn buoy and almost swam kind of under it, and then hit the turn. And then, as you can see here, it was just kind of, I kept the line pretty good. The buoy stayed in place, but this section was just it was intense. People everywhere, waves in your face, the washing machine effect, kayakers running around. The kayakers were like, they couldn't stay still. They were being pushed into our way, so you had to like swim around kayakers a few times. It was crazy. But as you can see on this backside, swimming into shore, these little points, that's where the buoys were at. So problem was when you turn this first turn, you look, and where you expect the buoy to be at, it was not there. It was like over to the left. So at first I thought it was kind of overcompensating. You look where the buoy should be, and the current just pushed you, and you're already off course. If you take a look here, it almost looks like that buoy. The buoy's probably, this turn buoy probably got pushed out a little bit, because if you look at this is not like the course map. It's not a nice, you're almost kind of going back in a little bit to the east as you're swimming into shore. That's not what happened here. I mean, basically, you can tell the first loop here, I'll hit play. The first loop is where I had no idea what was going on. And I found the buoy and had to swim back to it. And after that, I kind of got a little bit smarter about kind of aiming west as I was swimming into shore, and the current would just push me where I needed to go. It was a little bit crazy. Basically, I'm swimming west and trying to get to shore, and the current is pushing me east and keeping me on course. So, I'm alluding to a little bit what I did to kind of overcome this, but that was, like I said, in my 9 Ironman races, Ironman finishes, that was probably the toughest swim. I've done Lake Tahoe. The water was cold, and the winds were down, so it wasn't really as much of a struggle as far as current wise. I've done river swims at Chattanooga. I've done reservoir swims in Colorado, but nothing. Even 2017 Ironman Florida, nothing compared to this. This was an intense swim, and like I said, about 400 to 500 athletes rumored did not make it out of the swim and make it onto the course. So it is interesting. Some people have brought up, well, maybe after that first loop, they should have shortened it to one loop or something like that. Problem is, when you already got athletes doing their second loop, You know, what are you supposed to do at that point? You know, kind of stop the race and have everybody do a reset. You know, it's kind of hard, but hey, sometimes that's what Ironman is. Sometimes you get out there and the course is just it is what it is. You know, it's gonna be cold or raining or the water without any kind of there's no indicators whatsoever. I mean, it was a little bit of a breeze on shore while we're waiting to start, but it was not like super windy. Like the couple days before, it was pretty windy and pretty brisk. But you know, once we got out past the pier, I just the wind changed. The winds of change hit us, and we were just punched and pushed and everything in between. So what I wanted to do also kind of was, um, like I said, just kind of give you guys a view of or kind of a feeling of how the swim was out there. Like I said, that the swimming out was fine. There was no indicators that there's going to be a problem until I saw that last turn buoy and it was on its side, and you knew that wind was probably going to cause a problem. Even swimming and bilateral breathing, I didn't have problems, you know, with waves in my face or anything like that. So you really didn't notice anything when you're coming out. You almost had that tailwind effect. I mean, you could see from my course here, I did get pushed off a little bit, but on the second loop, I kind of went a little bit wider, and I'll go over kind of the strategies that I did implemented on that second loop just to kind of make it a little bit more tolerable. So that first loop, everybody was going wide, and they're kind of over to the east of what line they should have been on. And actually, the best, cleanest line with the least amount of people was trying to swim basically buoy line. That second time, I just went buoy to buoy, but looking ahead, you could see that the buoys were a little bit off. So I just kind of tried to make that straight line, but also tried to kind of steer towards the west because that current would kept pushing you along. So it's like a crosswind on a bike, you know, or when you got that crosswind, you're trying to fight it a little bit. So you're swimming kind of against the current, but it's keeping you on course. So really, I didn't really struggle on that first out to the buoy, but the second loop, I did develop a little bit more of a strategy where I was seeing sighting was super easy, so I could see two buoys down. So instead of kind of looping back and catching the buoys, you know, as long as you stay to the right of them, you're still on course. So I just did a straight line as much as possible. Didn't really care as much about the intermediate buoys because they're all getting pushed. I think the current was pushing them out as far as they can go on their tethers, and I just tried to keep that straight line because, as you can see, on the second loop, I was a little bit wider than I was before, but I just kept going buoy, sighting the buoy, past the buoy, and it was really super easy and not a problem on the way out on the first loop. But coming in when I hit that turn to start swimming west, the couple strategies that I used to get past that was I could no longer breathe on the right because every time I take a breath, there's just a wave in my face, and I just got mouths full of salt water, and it was not good. Does not make your stomach feel good, and it tastes awful. So basically, I only breathe on the left side. So that's why I advise a lot of people is be able to breathe on both sides. Bilateral breathing is key in something like this. So I only breathe on the left, and then I implemented only breathing every four strokes. That way I could keep my efficiency going and not break my stroke by doing more sighting than I wanted to. So every four strokes, I was coming up for a breath, and that gave me enough to at least see people as they're swimming to make sure I wasn't totally off course. The other thing was knowing that the wind was pushing me kind of, I guess if you want to say southeast, I was pointing towards the northwest while I was swimming, so I was almost pointing kind of diagonal of the straight line, knowing that the current was pushing me. So breathing every four strokes, I hugged that buoy line as tight as possible because everybody else was getting blown out a little bit more towards open water. So I wanted to avoid people because that was a problem. People were swimming left, right, wherever, trying to stay on course, and swimming over people was causing all kinds of problems, slowing me down. So I went hugged the buoy line as much as possible to try to stay away from as many people as possible. Pointed northwest and let the current keep me pointed in the right direction because it was amazing. You do four strokes, you look up, and I did a breathing stroke instead of looking up and like dog paddling or just stopping my stroke. A lot of people just stopped and were just looking for buoys. That's the worst thing you can do is start and stop on a swim. So if you figure out how to do, I call it the Tarzan drill. So when you're swimming with your head above water, it's really draining and really taxing. But if you do 2 or 3 strokes like that to find where your next buoy is, as long as you're keeping the momentum, it'll keep you moving. So I did the kind of a Tarzan stroke to keep deciding. So every 4 strokes, I breathe, and then the next one I'd sight. 4 strokes, breathe, 4 strokes, sight. And that kept me, and I was pointed, I felt like I was over aiming towards the shore, but it was keeping me on track. I expected fully to be looking at the pier straight ahead, and there was the next buoy straight ahead. It was an interesting tactic that I decided to try during the race, and I've only knew about that because I've done it in other swims, I've done it in other races, I've done it in training, I've done it in my open water swims. I knew it was something that used in my swimming in the past and that can help me out on race day. So it wasn't something that I just came up with on the spot. I've done it before. I've done it in training, and it's not that big a deal just to incorporate it in a race like this when you need it. So basically, that's how I got through the backswim there. And when I made this turn on the second time, I knew those buoys. Something was going on. I'm pretty certain this turn buoy was getting blown in because if you look at the line, these points, I went ahead and I stayed to the left of the buoys. Some people just swam inside of them and swam to the finish line, whatever. But I went ahead and chose to stay to the left of the buoy. So what I did was I stayed way wide left. I knew the current would push me into the buoy line, but a lot of people were getting pushed. I mean, people were getting pushed over into the kind of a open water area, and they were swimming straight back to those buoys. I did not want to be one of those people wasting that much energy and time. So basically, I swam wide left of the buoys and sighted basically almost to the west as I was swimming in, and that kept me every time I looked up. There's a buoy. I felt like I was over dramatically swimming to the left. I look up, there's a buoy. Um, and as you can see, it wasn't perfect. That first buoy, that current was strong. It was pushing us in, but I had to kind of overcome that and make sure I stayed on line. And once you get past that first buoy, it seemed like the wind and the current, everything kind of died down a little bit. Still had to use some strategies, and I stayed left just to avoid the people struggling in the buoy line or trying to get back to the buoy and swim around the buoys. It was chaos at the buoys. So this one I could bilateral breathe. It was a little bit more difficult because when I came up for my sighting stroke, the waves and the chop would just hit you in the face. So it was a little bit more difficult. There's times where I didn't get a breath and knew I'd be okay because I've incorporated breathing techniques into my swimming drills. So basically, I could go 4 to 5 strokes without needing a breath. If you come up and you get a face full of water, just know you're okay. Just keep on. The last thing you want to do is sit there and just stop and the current push you in wherever it's going to go. You got to keep swimming no matter what. So knowing that, hey, I'm just going to take another breath and I'll get that air. I'll get that air. You're not going to drown out there. There's enough people out there to help you that if you get a face full of water, worst case, you stop swimming and get your air. But just keep going. Know that you're going to get some air at some point. Just immediately, breathe every stroke if you need to. Breathe every 3. Bilateral breathe to the left, to the right, whatever. Tarzan stroke. Know how to sight. Know how to aim yourself when you're swimming in open water like this. This was a true test to, if you, most of my training is done in the pool. I try to hit open water as much as possible. We got little lakes here that have a little, 250-meter course. Try to swim as much open water as possible and learn how to sight. Pick things in the water and sight to them. It becomes super critical in races like this, especially, Ironman Florida. Typically, the swim isn't too crazy. The 2 times I've done it here when it's been in Panama City Beach, um, it just wasn't crazy. There wasn't crazy waves. There wasn't crazy wind on the shore. It wasn't like 30-mile-per-hour gusts or anything crazy. And you just get out there and you just don't know what you're going to get looking in from shore. I mean, looking in from shore, it was calm waters coming on the beach. It was just nice little rolling waves. Piece of cake. You walk out in there. I mean, we walked out probably 50, 75 yards before it really got deep enough to start swimming. So it just really was uh, just kind of a surprise once you got out there to the point where you turned at that first buoy and you knew something was going on. So this is my. I just wanted to kind of do a little video, kind of my rendition of kind of what I experienced out there, and hopefully this helps you out if you want to do Ironman Florida in the future. This is something you got to be ready for. That open water swim, swimming in the ocean is real. It's a real deal. I even think I wore a wetsuit. It was wetsuit legal. I believe I got stung a little bit by some sort of jellyfish or other animals or something. I think I got something on my forehead in between my goggles and my swim cap. And I wore a neoprene swim cap because I hate being cold. So I wore that and did not wear, I wore my Under Armour shorts because I didn't want anything wet when I started the bike except my undershorts. So I changed wetsuit and I had my Under Armour shorts on. I put my tri suit over that and then layered up in warm clothes and hit the bike because it was in the 40s when we started the bike ride. It was sunny, but it was a little chilly. But hopefully this helps you out. You got to be ready for Ironman Florida. You got to be ready for that open water swim. You can't just swim in a pool at the bare minimum and feel like you're going to do okay. And you're like, oh, I think I'll just I have 10 minutes of fluff for the cutoff. I am in 2017. I did the swim in an hour 10. This year, I did it in. See, I'll show you my information here. I got nothing to hide. I did an hour and 32. So I was about 23 minutes over on my swim time from 2017. So, as you can see here, pace looks good. You get to that first turn, and holy cow, I was doing 122, 139, 128 minutes per 100 yard, and all of a sudden, 244, 302, 216, and then we hit the turn, and this second buoy in, you can see the kind of 132, 2 minutes, 147. It gets a little bit better. And then you hit that turn again, and it just went to pot. So you can definitely tell from paces how much effort it took to get out past there. Because, and I'll say something else, it's got stroke rate on there. So once I hit this part of the swim, I increased my stroke rate to just get over the waves and really high reach to try to get in there, make sure I'm getting my entry point right by my head to get as much length as possible, to get as much out of every stroke as possible. Because the last thing you want to do is kind of a windmill thing where you're just trying to run through it. If you're going to increase your pace, you want to make sure you're still being efficient and really upping that stroke count to really overcome that current. Because if you didn't change anything, that current, if you just stood there and treaded water, it will push you. It would have pushed you to the east, and you would have been going backwards. I believe some people were talking about seeing kayaks and boats and jet skis going backwards in the water because they were just floating along. So, but anyway, this is, I think, good old 23 minutes of my rendition of this swim. So hopefully this helped you out. I just want to post this information to make you guys aware that you go out there and you do this race in Ironman Florida. It is in the ocean. It is open water. Anything can happen out there. It could look perfect when you're out on the beach, perfect when you're in there doing the race start, and then when you get out so far away from shore, especially it just seemed once you get past this the pier. I don't know if there's a current situation going on around the pier. It was just kind of squirrely, and once you got out there, man, it was a different swim. So you got to be ready. You got to have all these tools in your toolbox to make sure that you have the ability to overcome this and make sure that you minimize the damage. Like I said, I was 23 minutes over my typical normal swim time, which affected my whole race time. But at the end of the day, I was not super exhausted when I came out of the swim. It really didn't, and this is probably the least amount of swimming I've done to prepare for races in this 2021 season. And it really was not that super impactful. The saltwater helped for buoyancy, and we had our wetsuits on, and I had my neoprene swim cap to keep me warm. And once you got out past the shoreline, the water did warm up, so it wasn't like super frigid out there. But just be ready. Really invest in those swimming drills. It's not about just doing volume in the pool. It's making sure that you have swim strength to overcome a situation like this. Make sure you have things in the toolbox like bilateral breathing, being able to go extended stroke counts without getting a breath, being confident in the water. If you get a face full of water and you suck it in and you inhale water, you'll be okay. You can keep swimming and you just you're coughing underwater or whatever, and you come up and get your air. If you don't get your air, then you'll get it the next stroke. Just shorten your strokes. Go every stroke. Catch up. There's nothing that says you have to do a breath every 4 strokes. There's nothing that says you have to do a breath every 1 stroke. You can mix it up out there, whatever it takes. So hopefully this helps you out. If you have any other questions, put them in the comments. If this video helps you out, give it a like. See us on YouTube or Facebook, or give it a like. Give me a subscribe on YouTube. Hit the notification button. I'll post more information about Ironman Florida and the other races that I've done or training my athletes for. And hopefully this helps you out. So with that, happy training out there, and we'll see you guys at the finish line.